This week, CBC News has been digging into vaping and its health effects. Our investigation has given you a glimpse into how it got so popular so quickly, all the chemicals that you might find in a vape pod, even what they can do to your teeth. But ultimately, how the long-term health effects are unknown. For something that's caught on so aggressively, we know awfully little about it. So tonight, the million-dollar question: is vaping as dangerous as smoking? And whatever the answer to that question, should we treat them, restrict them, regulate them the same way? Three very smart people joining us to help answer those very questions tonight. Dr. Teresa Martineau is a respirologist at the University Health Network here in Toronto. Cameron Prozic is a grade 12 student trustee at the Hamilton School Board, and for years has worked with his local public health unit to inform others about vaping. And joining us from the University of Waterloo, Dave Hammond, who has spent a considerable amount of time studying tobacco control policies, also served as an advisor to the World Health Organization. Hello to all of you. So earlier this week, we've been getting questions from online, from all sorts of people about vaping. This one came from Randy Leahy on Facebook asking, smoking cigarettes causes lung cancer. We know this. Vaping causes what exactly? Is vaping really less dangerous? Dr. Martineau, can you start us off?
Yeah, I think that's a key question. You know, it's true that vaping or the vape products don't contain some of the known toxic substances in cigarettes, such as the soot, the carbon, the particulate matter. However, they contain a bunch of other chemicals that are not contained in cigarettes. So there's a lot of unknown. However, I would say that there are three things that actually I worry about as being more dangerous about vaping. And that's the addictive potential, because some of them have higher nicotine content than cigarettes. Number two is the acute effect on the lungs that we have seen that is not seen in cigarettes. And then the known presence of some of the toxic substances in the vapes that I worry will cause long-term effects that we have potentially not seen yet.
In terms of the documented cases of vaping-related illness, though, have we done enough to separate the black market vape devices and vape liquids from the, more mainstream, legitimate ones that you might find on a store shelf?
You know, I don't think that has been a huge concern. And the studies that have been done in the US have actually studied some of the off-the-shelf products that people are accessing in a legitimate, legal way, and have analyzed the content of those substances and have found substances that were not documented on the ingredient list and high concentrations of some toxic substances.
Cameron, how do you think of that question of more dangerous, less dangerous than smoking?
See, often we get caught up in people use the term safe and safer, and that's where I actually become concerned, because when you use the term safer than smoking, people jump to immediately saying, oh, it's safe, I can do it, it doesn't matter. I always like the terms dangerous, less dangerous, harmful, less harmful, just because A, we don't know the long-term health effects, right? B, what we can say right now is that nicotine is addictive, it hooks their users, and that's what's happening, right? A new generation of youth is getting hooked to nicotine.
And you see this quite prevalently in your high school?
Very much, exactly. So, you walk out, we walk out of your high school, what used to be the smoke pit is now the vape pit, right? You start smelling clouds of cotton candy when you walk out the front door of your high school, right?
David, the only upside to vaping from a health perspective that I can think of is if it helps smokers stop smoking. Is that happening?
It certainly can happen. I mean, the hope around vaping was that you have a less harmful alternative. And just to put things into perspective, in the 10 years that e-cigarettes have been on the market in Canada, we've had somewhere around 400,000 people die from conventional smoking cigarettes. We don't have one recorded death yet in Canada from e-cigarettes. We suspect they will be harmful in the long term. We know enough now to say that if you don't smoke, you should not be using these products. But we do need that context. Now, the idea was that these products would help some individual smokers to quit smoking. There was a bigger plan, which was to say that the emergence of a less harmful nicotine delivery source that people were willing to use would actually help to usher out the era of the dirtiest mode of delivery, which is to say smoke. Well, we haven't seen action on that today.
Okay, yeah, right. And on that front, David, we got an excellent question from Kimberly Dawn on Facebook asking, why has the federal government allowed flavored vape pods if the intent is smoking cessation? I mean, the point being, if the intent was genuinely to help people stop smoking, surely there was a more focused way of doing it.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And what we've seen is that, I think these products are pretty much what they expected, but that doesn't mean that you should open up the market, have them sold next to the, candy bars and slushy machine with flavors like peanut butter and jam and cotton candy. And so they have that potential, but they only have that potential if adult smokers are using them and not kids. And we've actually failed both constituencies to the point where most health professionals do not want to even talk about these products because they're associated with a 15-year-old grabbing them on their way out to a party rather than a 50-year-old using them to quit smoking. So it's what you said. It has everything to do with how it's regulated, and the current market, the current regulations are broken. The question is what can we do to fix it so we reduce use among kids but actually make these accessible to adults?
I guess, Dr. Martineau, I mean, the best case scenario for a smoker who takes up vaping is that they eventually quit both.
That would be great.
The worst case scenario, though, is what? I mean, if they end up continuing both?
Potentially continuing both, yeah, and increasing their nicotine addiction and potentially even increasing their use of both.
Okay, I want to get to another viewer question. This is from Louise Gilmer from Petawawa, Ontario.
How much nicotine are these teenagers consuming a day compared to cigarettes, for example? And what is the danger of consuming that much nicotine?
Okay, so two questions for the price of one. Cameron, when you look at, first of all, high school students who are vaping, how much are they typically vaping?
It's generally a lot. If you own a vape, you're hitting it 24/7, right? But the scary thing is that it's a social thing. So when you're at a party, you're vaping the entire time. So when you see that, you're consuming a lot of nicotine, right? And it's up to 45 milligrams per milliliter of nicotine in these, smaller Juul products. That's scary. That is immediately going to start changing your brain and start getting you addicted.
But Dr. Martineau, I mean, so what does that actually mean? I mean, if we're trying to draw an equivalence between vaping and smoking, do we know, I mean, is there a how much is too much sort of a question that we can ask when it comes to nicotine?
It really seems like it's a spectrum. Different people will have different responses to it, but nicotine, especially long-term, really has effects on the nervous system, on nerves throughout the body. It's a stimulant. It causes constriction of muscles throughout the body, and it causes constriction of blood vessels. It's really toxic to the heart. It has multiple effects on the whole body, especially long-term, and especially on the developing brain in young people.
David, what's the fear here if an entire generation gets hooked on nicotine?
Well, we've seen the first expansion of the nicotine market among Canadian youth in decades as a result. Look, nicotine has killed more people in Canada and around the world than any war or, any other disease over the last 100 years. So, we need to respect that this is a very serious drug, and the consequences of starting in youth are often a lifetime commitment. At the same time, we need to recognize that, vaping is a mode of drug delivery. The risks are what you're vaping. And so around 80 to 90% of the serious cases of lung disease are actually from THC oils and contaminants in those oils. There's just enough nicotine products that it raises important questions, but we need to appreciate that vaping is not going to go away. What we need is proper regulation so that at the very first step we know what are in these products. And it will come as a surprise to most people that right now our federal and provincial governments, to my knowledge, don't even have ingredient lists of the products that millions of Canadians are using. And that doesn't, that doesn't reflect a well-regulated market, in my opinion, especially as we see some of these risks emerging.
So as we look forward then, I mean, in terms of the original question of whether we ought to treat vaping the same way we treat smoking, lots of ways that you've raised, David, that we could be doing that, whether it's packaging, whether it's, age restrictions, whether it's nicotine content, whether it's advertising bans, taxation. We haven't even gone there yet. And, this is something that BC is working towards. Is it any or all of those things? And the follow-up maybe, can you put the genie back in the bottle?
We can't put the genie back in the bottle because this is a technology that is out there and it's not going away. And so I don't think, some U.S. states are talking about banning it outright. If we have concerns about what's in them, you don't want these going into the back dark alleys again. So what do we need to do? Get rid of flavors like peanut butter and jam and cotton candy. Get the advertising out of venues where they reach kids. We need to have a serious conversation about the nicotine levels. Should there be adult-only access stores? Should we actually treat these products like we do other nicotine replacement therapy? And they could be sold in the same way where we sell nicotine gum and the nicotine patch. So, that's an important question that we haven't answered, and it provides a lot more protections than having these products in every corner store where the kids inevitably confront them when they're buying their, you know, lifesavers or gum.
Cameron, he's talking about your generation. Final thought.
It's definitely alarming to see this many people taking up vaping. And what it seems like is, like, I'll just lay it out. There's attractive flavors on the table. They're marketing by the candy bars. It's so simple to hold and use these products. So just laying that out, it does seem like they are targeting youth, which is very sad to see.
Dr. Martin, last thought.
Yeah, I think it's our obligation to really work towards protecting the young and making sure that people are well informed. And currently there is not clear packaging description and not enough information out there. So I think that's definitely what we need to work towards.
David, Cameron, Dr. Martineau, thanks very much.
My pleasure.
Thanks for having us.